Um, it's interesting. And before I talk about this, recent title that making the buzz everywhere, it just occurred to me that it was almost at this time, about 11, 12 years ago, that I first met you. I don't know if you recall Bookie, who hosts the classic morning show, had run through the corridor. I was sitting with Uncle Jimmy Diso, and she comes in really excited, saying, Uncle Jimmy, you have to meet this politician. He's the future. And then you were running for chairman of local government.
Yes, Ikeja local government.
At the co-op party. Just talk us through, you had just graduated from the MIT, done a bit of work. The world was your oysters at the time.
Yeah.
And then you had this rush of madness to come back to Lagos and pursue some political career.
Yeah.
What led you to that decision that many would call some sort of mad cow disease?
No, what?
The opportunities you had in MIT. And
to be fair, it was, I know now it looks like it was madness, but then it wasn't. Everybody that graduated from top schools all moved back at that time. This was the time of President Olusegun Obasanjo transitioning into Yaradua. There was a feeling that if you are not in Nigeria, you are missing out. There was a feeling of the ministers that were in position knew what they were doing. There was a feeling that they sought the best to lead, not necessarily politicians, but they sought the best hands to lead. And so most people felt that they needed to come back. So I remember all my friends moved back. It was not a lone ranger thing. And we came back, we started working, joined NYSC, started my own architecture practice as well, did some work. And I think the whole thing was triggered by a 2-year campaign against genetic modified foods, right? Which then opened my eyes to the real fact of the power that governance has over people. There's the thing that there's the level of governance that is very blatant. Okay, my roads are bad. Okay, I don't have light. Okay, the education system is poor. Those are very blatant and in your face. But there are other policies that are so far-reaching and is determined by the people at the helm of affairs that would affect everybody. And that was agriculture. That was food policy. That was introducing this artificial created food into our natural food system. And that was a whole 2-year period I dedicated my life to that. We went back and forth with the then Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Akinwumi Adesina, and NABDA, MBMA, all of that. I mean, all this is very well documented.
Yeah, I mean, just even to speak to that, I know there's a recent Premium Times report about, setting sponsorship by international organizations who sort of wanted to blacklist you for
exactly
that you were talking about.
So that's the strategy.
Explain what really is the problem with those seeds and why you were vehemently against them, and why obviously international agencies had to sponsor a campaign of colony against you.
Yeah, so it's a situation where, first of all, the seeds that you plant, you cannot replant those seeds. In lots of parts of Europe, China, Russia treats people that plant these crops as terrorists, right? And so your market, your reach for export is significantly limited compared to if you grow organic, well-produced organic food. You can export to everywhere. Third, it's linked to significant healthcare, health issues, right? Endocrine disruption, cancers, a lot of healthcare issues that have been found. But you see, the problem is there's a lot of money being made from this. So there's a lot of money that's pushed in to conduct research in their favor, pushed in to tarnish people that speak down against it, pushed in to lobby government and policymakers because corporations want to control the agricultural chain. And that's very different from the Nigerian and the African way of agriculture. Some may say that, okay, well, the way we've been producing has not led to bountiful harvests and all that. But that is more as a result of policy. You have a situation where people are planting mangoes in Benue, and before they can get a truck to move it to the city, 70% of it has gotten rotten. Same thing with tomatoes. That's road infrastructure. That's not having proper cold storage along the way. That's not having proper extension services by agriculture ministry. It is not necessarily because your seeds are bad. And we must, as Africans, as people that understand the history that we've had in the last 300, 400 years on this planet, we must be, one, very conscious of defending ourselves, and two, very conscious of independently feeding ourselves. Because once you can control people's food, you control them, right?
I mean, we're going to talk a lot more about, policy, but I wanted to just quickly take you back to the title that you recently, quite a colorful event.
Yeah.
And I'm here wondering over the top of my head, firstly, did you feel a need to take that title because of obviously the backlash you got? Let me not even call it backlash. Let me call it the propaganda that was sponsored against you in the last elections that questioned your heritage, your family background, things like that. So did you think it was important and it was needful for you to get a traditional title to sort of give you legitimacy as a true son of the soil? And I also heard, and I'd like you to speak to this, that there was a whole lot of pressure, from people on the other side who didn't want you to get that title, and they were making several calls to sort of stop people from getting you. Just speak to us about that.
Well, I'm a very stubborn person, so you can't pressure me to doing anything. I mean, if I was the kind of person that capitulates like that, I've joined the APC a long time ago. I was actually supposed to get a title before the elections. And I know the pressure that came onto that ruling house to ensure that that title was not given. I mean, you had people literally refunding all the money for the party and everything, and just see, this won't pass us. And that is why we keep talking about the fact that Lagos State there's a state capture that has happened in Lagos, and every ruling house in all that constitutes Ibile, our traditional rulers, they know what I'm talking about. It might not be something that's said in public, but they know that they cannot on their own give out titles. I mean, and it's actually disgraceful when you think about the fact that these ruling houses have been making history for hundreds of years, when most of these politicians that are now lording over them really had not contributed, or their grandfathers or great-grandfathers had not contributed to society in any way, shape or form. It's very disgraceful how far we're falling. And I don't think that's right. I think that, yes, we understand that the European came and destroyed the traditional system by conquering them, and our political class have inherited the position of the European, but still, we are African, we are Nigerian, we are Yoruba. It should be more than just lip service we pay to our traditional elite. They should have a say in policy formulation. They should be able to do things. It's not a cult we are running.
Yeah.
Because a person does not belong to a party does not mean that a ruling house cannot be free to recognize them.
Yeah.
And if that ruling party has been doing what they're supposed to do in terms of making lives of people better, they will not be this insecure or petty to constantly be trying to suppress and push people out with lies, propaganda, or even threatening ruling houses, which is very disgraceful to my mind. And yes, you're right. I mean, people, like, it was going through that whole process and just seeing the kind of pressure that people were put on, lies that started again being told and all of that. But fortunately, the people that were in charge, we had been talking for a very long time. We've known ourselves for a very long time, and they're very passionate and feel very strongly about it. And they feel that it will be a good position for me as an ambassador to unite religions. Yeah. That's what it's really about. It's about the fact that, there's a divide and rule concept that is so ideological, tribal, constantly dividing us. And the more we stay divided, the less we can actually come together and demand good governance. And that's why we constantly fall back, and the world keeps leaving us behind. Yeah. Because we constantly stay divided. So, fortunately, they were strong enough to resist the pressure, and I'm very happy.
Yeah, we're going to talk about, oppositions and how prepared the opposition is in the coming elections. But, yes. I mean, just a bit further, just to stretch this thought a second longer. Because the fallout of this largely came from the 2023 elections that had a lot of bigotry, a lot of violence. I'm not sure you've been asked this question, and I really wanted to ask the kind of impact that it had on, your family, your immediate family, your wife, your mother, your family. the kind of hate that was used in the election, the kind of language, the insults and things like that. Did you sit down and question why you were doing this at all? And did at any point come where you thought this whole thing wasn't worth it because of the amount of mudslinging that happened, the desperation to sort of delegitimize you and destroy your name and your families?
That's a fantastic question. I think I had moments where I felt really bad that my parents had to be dragged into this, especially lies. It's one thing to say, if my father was a thief and you say my father was a thief, it's okay, my father was a thief, if that's what you want to say.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. When you start telling lies, that the man that sacrificed so much to give me the best education, give me such a good life, and put so much love into my life is not my father. I did not grow up with him. You are literally just taking away something that is his pride and joy. And I feel that was so wrong. Saying that my mother grew up with me somewhere else. I mean, all sorts of things were concocted. And I remember my parents said they have to give an interview and talk about all of this. And they did. I think this about 2-3 months ago. And I think maybe that also helped towards a healing. Because when you think about the lows that people go to try and create this type of lies, it's very disgraceful. But that's one side. The other side is it make me so much more determined. Because if people that have been in charge of a state for over 2 decades cannot talk about how they have elevated the quality of lives of Lagosians, cannot campaign based on the impact they've made in Lagos, how they've done this and how the quality of education system is so good. People can go to public schools now. People can get access to quality healthcare systems, things that even they experience as young people. If they cannot campaign based on that and they have to resort to lies, bigotry, divide and rule, it really shows how fragile their position is in Lagos. It actually showed me their weakness, right? So it even made me more determined. So if you see, unlike typical opposition politics in Lagos, where after elections people go quiet, that gave me a lot more morale to continue going, to stay on the scene, to stay invested, to solve as many problems as we can that we saw along the campaign trail. Like, for instance, our micro health insurance plan that we give for free all across communities in Lagos, and just help as many people as we can. Show love, show empathy, be what we want, what we imagine or demand the government to be at our own scale, right? Because we don't have those kind of vast resources to the ability that we can. So for me, it really betrayed a weakness, because I feel like if I was campaigning against a government like Chief Alhaji Lateef Jakonde, he should be having a walk in the park. Like, he should just be like, what are you saying? I mean, just look at all the accommodation I just built him. Or Joe, look at what I just did here. Look how many people are benefiting from it. It should be a walkover when you have been in charge of something for over 20 years. Yeah. But then you have to tell a lie about a young man that his father, who is not his father, and he's Igbo. All of you know. Yeah. You're talking about Rhodes Vivour. So it's
now talking about opposition, because you mentioned that, and I'm here, over the top of my head. It appears that the strategy leading to the 2027 general elections is to balkanize the opposition as much as possible. To plant seeds of discord and things like that. And obviously, you're still a member of the Labour Party that has been dealing with the fallout of a Supreme Court decision where Nigeria is probably the only country that people get more confused after a ruling of the Supreme Court. But here we are. But do you worry, really and truly, that you might be running, and including you and Mr. Peter Obi, you might be running on a shaky platform that could spill over a lot of problems leading into 2027, such that you could have cases model up in court that could just sort of scuttle your entire agenda going forward in 2027.
That's an issue, but to be honest with you, that issue can be solved politically. When enough people say they want to sit down and solve it. I'm not worried about that. What I'm genuinely worried about is the level of hatred and toxicity I see on social media now. And I know that it is being engineered, right? Where people, Yoruba people, Igbo people, they are going back and forth, insulting each other and all of that. It's just classic divide and rule, divide and conquer. And you see that there are agents of this. It's not natural. This thing is not natural, because who are the people that get married to themselves the most? The hatred only seems to exist on this plane of social media, and then somehow it creeps into reality when there's some level of competition, but it's not really real, because these are not people that have fought wars with themselves, that are not people that have conquered themselves, at least before we got independence or anything like that. But what you see is a well-engineered sowing of negativity and seeds, and this is what people are actively doing. Now, the main worry about that is when a people cannot see past their divisions to see their shared interest. Because when Nigeria does not work, it's going to affect all of us. The Naira crashing, the value in your account does not discriminate on whether your name is Yoruba or your name is Hausa or your name is Igbo, right? All of us feel the depreciation of the currency. All of us have to pay higher amounts for electricity. There are people that are paying band-aid fees that are not getting band-aid treatment, even though that when you even think about that concept, right? Which is just finding a way to sort of create an elite band based on the mediocrity that we're experiencing in the country, right? The country keeps going in a downward spiral, but people keep telling us that everything is okay. Now, the point is, all of us are facing that. All of us will experience the same thing. We send our children to public schools in Lagos State today, right? And the more we just stay, instead of us to come together and put our issues towards the leadership, towards the people at the helm of affairs, instead, we are busy going, you see a huge amount of people busy going back and forth with each other about things that have no bearing to the quality of their lives, quality of the lives of their parents, their children, their loved one. It's almost as if they think this is like a premiership match, that when the game is over, they can switch TV off and go back to their real life, right? And that is what I'm worried about, because this is very engineered. You see accounts that are set up with names from a certain tribe saying things that you know that nobody is saying in a regular world.
Yeah.
And until I pray that between now and next elections, we can see past that and understand that the people we have to face wholeheartedly are the people in charge of government. And we must be able to, elections must come and we must make a referendum on the performance and where they've taken us to as a people. That is what matters. All these other things are completely irrelevant.
I'm sure a lot of people are surprised that you're one of the very first opposition candidates in Lagos that has stayed on the issues right after campaign. And three of the issues that you have stayed on, one is on housing, one is on environment. Those two, you have been really big on those issues.
Yeah.
But I wanted to touch on housing first, because there's a clear housing problem in Lagos.
A very significant
many of
one.
which people either cannot find affordable houses, or, they are paying too much, to live in cubicles, essentially. I mean, in fact, I think it was last week, even the Lagos State House of Assembly sort of mouthed about the fact that they wanted to enforce, some acts that stop landlords from taking too high rents and things like that. How do you intend, or how do you think you are going to solve this housing problem in Lagos, such that working class people had access to decent homes and we didn't have to deal with this level of rent hikes that you're currently seeing today?
Yeah. We need to increase housing stock, and increase housing stock with a deliberate agenda to make housing for people that are low income. You see, most of development that's going on in Lagos State now is championed by entrepreneurs and business people that are trying to maximize on profit. So when you see maximization on profits, you then tend to see that there must be proximity to Lagos Central. So now they want to chase out the entire Makoko community and fill that place, and then build like a new type of Ikoyi there, where flats about 110 million, 150 million. how many Lagosians can actually afford that, right? And you see a lot of sand feeling happening, which automatically increases the cost of housing stock, right? So we're talking about a deliberate attempt to build housing stock that's affordable. And you can easily pick out a leaf from Chief Alhaji Lateef Jakonde's housing plans, where he sort of put the land prices at zero, and then the construction prices, he made sure that once it was done at the best possible price in the fastest possible time. I mean, look at how much housing units they created in just 4.5 years, right? So it's about being very deliberate about that. That's one. And two, it's also about decentralizing development in Lagos State, because there are so many places. You look at Ekpe, you look at Ikorodu, look at the Badagry, Lagos West, where you are sitting on good land where you don't need sand filling to happen, which would then reduce the cost of construction. Also, during the campaign, I talked about using different kind of technologies, new types of architecture, because a lot of times also we are overstructuring our buildings. And not a country that is prone to earthquakes or natural disasters. And you see that even with our engineering, we are overstructuring buildings, but then you also see how people are cutting the corner on quality of material, quality of structure, so you then start seeing building collapses. It's about a middle ground where development and building structures are properly regulated, but also properly structured, so that we can actually achieve affordable housing. Another issue was about connectivity of Lagos, because the better Lagos can be connected, the more likely that people can live, for instance, in Ikorodu, in Ekpe, in Badagry, and be able to come to places of business and achieve this in a better possible time, and have a higher quality of living. But housing stock, I feel, again, is about being deliberate, because too much focus is put on creating developments for the rich and the wealthy. And it's almost as though Lagos State is being developed at the exclusion of people that cannot afford these kind of housing units. And that's not how it's supposed to be. A city that is working must have a pride of place for every income group that is in that state, right? And there should be a basic quality of life that is guaranteed to residents that live in that place. Another thing was, how do we fund this? We need to have a holistic approach, whether it's when we are dredging our inland waterways, we are using some of that sand to construct affordable housing. So it has to be a cycle. It has to work holistically. You have high-end developments that are happening in places like Ikwa Atlantic, in Ikoyi, in those kind of highbrow areas. A social development fund can be used instead of all the money, so a transparent way by which people can get their planning. You don't have to pay any bribes, but the fund that's gotten from those buildings that's paid to the state as tax or whatever can then be used to develop. It's directly tied to an account that's solely for the purpose of developing low-income housing. And then the other part of it is, how do people access this? Through a lottery system that is completely transparent and accountable. Because another problem is, you see people call something affordable housing. They sell it among themselves, then it comes to the market at a price that's definitely not affordable. And that's why you still find this kind of housing stock. Another issue is also the price of agency fees, the price of legal documents. So you find, and especially at the low end of housing, right? You see people paying agency fees and legal fees that are almost the same price as the rent. And that's completely unacceptable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it creates a significant barrier to people actually getting property. And that needs to be.
Aside the housing problem, is an environmental problem. Lagos that you speak, so eloquently around. And how do you intend, or what's the remedy to the environmental challenges that we face in Lagos, especially in terms of the amount of waste that is generated and the impact that it has on the resilience of the environment, in itself?
Yeah, so because we are rushed for time, I'm just going to summarize. We must see waste as a resource. That's the first thing. Secondly, we must open up the PSP system to create a platform system. We can borrow sort of the Uber idea where you have a truck, it's inspected, you plug in. You don't need to know anybody in a political party. You don't need to be a member of a political party. You don't need to come to Alausa. You have the equipment, you are given your route, and it is monitored. So, because there's so many communities that are underserved because we don't have enough PSP facilities to be able to develop this. And then also, you can have it at different scales. So whether it's the large truck that is moving around, down to smaller trucks, down to individuals, whatever is most convenient to get that waste out is very important, and it should be done. And this is something that must be looked at holistically. The second thing is we must start to ensure that waste is divided from the home. It's separated. Organic waste, plastic waste, and other waste must be separated from the home. So each of them are going on different routes to be processed, to be used, to create, to be upcycled, right? And the benefit of this should accrue to the local government so that it motivates the local government to be able to generate more wealth from waste.
The other question I wanted to ask you, obviously, was there's this new group in Lagos called the Renayans Group, if I'm correct, the Renayans Group. And they seem to be promoting what you would call the interest of indigenous people of Lagos. They want more representation, and things like that. I wanted to know, because some of the things that they have proposed is to say that they want a certain number of seats in the Lagos State House of Assembly reserved for indigents. They want certain positions, reserved. I'm not clear which other positions, but I was sure about the. I think even happens in the United Kingdom where you have, at a time, I don't know if it still happens, where you have some bishops who have like permanent seats representing the Church of England in the House of Lords. Do you share in that idea that indigenous people of Lagos should have some sort of preferential treatment where they have certain seats allocated to them, and perhaps they have some sort of quota in terms of appointments that is reserved for people of Lagos? Do you share that arguments that they're advancing?
I think that there's an important factor to that. I mean, you see people like Senator Yayi that was representing Lagos West, and you see all the resources, significant resources that were accrued that were supposed to benefit his constituents were spent contesting to become senator representing Ogun West. And now he's most likely going to run for governor in Ogun State. You see the same thing with someone like James Falike from Kogi that's been representing Ikeja for a long time, went to contest for deputy governor in Kogi State. And you see him moving motions in the interest of Kogi, but he's supposed to be representing Ikeja. You see, while Lagos State has been a cosmopolitan place for a very, very long time, before there was in Nigeria, I mean, Lagos State has been cosmopolitan. You look at the Tapa people, the Benin people, the Awori people, returnees, people they did business with, have been cosmopolitan for a long time. But it is very detrimental when the people of a land that have no other place to go, that have the history of this land that's come down to them, have no say or are not at the helm of affairs. I think that there is a detrimental impact that it has on the state. So I think that I don't think there's anything wrong with that call. It's a call that will never even need to be made in any other state in Nigeria. It's a call that, I doubt that an Ijebu man can be a local government chairman in Abeokuta. I doubt that an Ondo man today can be governor of Ekiti. Right? I strongly doubt it. So if Lagosians are saying that, we want to see somebody that's carrying the pedigree and the history and what we represent as a people at the helm of affairs, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
All right. Another thing, one of the problems that we have in elections in Lagos, because you'll be in another election in a year or two, as announced. I read the news in papers and TV saying you're going to contest again in 2027. One of the things people worry about, and it's been the trend with opposition in Lagos, are usually two things. One, do they have the ability to sort of defend their votes, in that context, which sort of gives people the confidence to come out and vote on election day? And secondly, if the opposition are better organized, to go into a contest with an incumbent government that have been in office for 24 years. So I'd ask you directly, first of all, do you really and truly think that the APC in Lagos is beatable? And if they are beatable, do you think that you have done enough and prepared enough, to go into a contest a year from now and perform better than you did in the 2023 elections? And what informs the answers that you're making? Why do you think you're going to perform better?
Yeah. I don't think, I know. I mean, we beat them presidential election, so I know that they can be beaten. I know that we beat them. I feel that there's a lot of work that we have to do till the last minute. There's a lot of work we're going to do. There's a lot of work we are already doing at community levels. It's very unfortunate that, when you look at the Ghanaian election, you look at the South African election, we're supposed to be giants of Africa, and we're here a year plus to an election, and we have to deal with the fact that people that have held position for so long can only hold that position by intimidation and violence. That says a lot, because this question is something that I get asked frequently. Like, can you defend your votes?
Why do you have to do? You wonder why
do we have to be defending our votes in democracy? These people have had 20 years to show for them to have a walkover if they've lifted the lives of people up. But it's a valid question because we see the reality every 4 years. And to answer it, again, these people have shown us who they are, and we're prepared for who they are. We prepare for the worst, we hope for the best. And that's just the reality that we are forced to deal with. I mean, even look at what they are doing to themselves. Look at how we see violence coming to the state assembly, right? Look at how 90% of the state assembly say they want somebody else to represent them, but they have to be forced to accept the person that they rejected. So this situation that we have in Lagos, this state capture that we currently have, where might is right, is something that we have to push against. We have to push back. The bully will continue to push you into the wall until you push back. And that's what needs to be done.
One of the things you've got a real slack for during the last election was, you were attacked for your Yoruba, and things like that. And I think I saw a picture of you, learning Yoruba or something.
Mm-hmm.
So are you learning the language?
I'm getting better. I'm becoming a better politician every day.
Ifa people. Are you just learning Yoruba? You're learning Ifa too.
I'm getting better at everything. I'm becoming a better politician. At the end of the day, I'm the kind of person that you throw lemons at me, I'll take it and make a very nice lemonade. So not just Yoruba, I'm going to learn Hausa as well. I'm going to learn Igbo as well. so that in years to come, the people will think, man, maybe we should have made that so much a big deal.
I think this is a fantastic place to draw the curtain on this conversation. Gbadebo, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I hope that we can do this again and have an entire hour ourselves. Lolo, thank you for giving us an extra minute to score the winning goal. We need extra time next time. Thank you, Lagosians, for joining into this conversation, for sending your messages. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you again.
And that's it on The Discourse.